nation as a mission. And that is why we say that SPAs, when created, they became a turning point for the education of planning and architecture. And I consider one more turning point in field of planning and architecture, that is when B-Plan actually as a degree was created. I was a student at that point of time, and we used to wonder what is this B-Plan degree, where it came from. And when we visited their studios, we were PG students at that time, and the first batch was being taken up by Professor Kavas Kapadia, and Ansari sir was the head. So that particular discipline actually created this field. When anybody asks me that why do you consider it as turning point, I say that architecture was a profession of elite till that time. Architecture could become a profession of working for all only after B-Plan was introduced in this. So SPAs as an entity are for planning and architecture. They can't be and should not be and must not be divided into two parts, that planning and architecture. No, if planning education enriches by architecture, by the presence of architecture faculty, the same is true for otherwise. And I have seen that as a student, as professor, as teacher, we have worked very hard to create this kind of ethos in our institute where we can contribute for the national causes, and I'm sure this will continue. I end my little speech, not very little, but little speech by welcoming all those students who have come from all parts of the country, especially SPA Vijayawada and SPA Delhi. Why I'm saying especially? Because they have come here as messengers who say that SPA is now a system and we are together. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wisdom words. Next, we come to the inauguration of magazine, and for the same, I invite Student Magazine Council on stage for the inauguration. Thank you so much. We are indeed fortunate to have another eminent scholar amongst us as the guest of honor for today's event. I invite Professor Amitabh Kundu to come on dais and deliver the keynote address. Though he needs no introduction, nonetheless, we take this opportunity to formally acknowledge his contributions. Professor Amitabh Kundu is synonymous with the urban chintan around the country. There has hardly been any discourse on urban affairs in the country at any significant academic or government forum which Mr. Amitabh Kundu has not addressed. An economist by training, Professor Kundu had been teaching until recently at the Center for the Study of Regional Development, Jawaharlal Nehru University. A senior Fulbright Fellow of Peninsular University, Professor Kundu has served as the Dean of School of Social Sciences at JNU. His roles range from being an eminent academician, administrator, and advisor to the government. Professor Kundu headed 3 renowned institutions of the country: National Institute of Urban Affairs, Indian Council of Social Science Research, and Gujarat Institute of Development Research at different points of time. Among his many advisory positions, a few key ones include being a member of National Statistical Commission, expert group of 11th 5-year plan, and chairperson of the 2 technical groups, Urban Housing Shortage of MOUD and Housing Startup Index of RBI. Sir, we request you to kindly address the gathering.
क्या है वीडियो चलेगा वीडियो
I'll leave the last 5 minutes for you. Mr. Mahesh N. Butch, you all know he doesn't need any introduction, and Gargi knows it very well, that it's very difficult to introduce him. Thank you, Gargi, for your kind words about me. Professor V.K. Singh, Mr. Ayush Upadhyay, Professor Khare, Professor Vinayak Chaudhary, colleagues and young friends. I'm really very excited and indebted to address the planners and architects of future urban India and the colleagues and other participants of this 16th National Convention of Student of Planners. It didn't take more than half a minute to cancel my local engagement in Delhi and accept the invitation from Professor Chaudhary when I heard that the theme of the convention is cities for all. I've been writing on the trends and patterns of urbanization. Mr. Butch hinted at that by talking about the Channel model, and I have been very critical of the exclusionary urbanization which is taking place in the country and to a certain extent many other Asian countries. The additional privilege was to share the platform with Mr. Mahesh Butch, who has been my old friend, and if I can take the liberty and mention, he's been my boss also at the National Institute of Urban Affairs. He has left his stamp. He has left his signature on the Indian administrative services, not only in Madhya Pradesh, but the whole country. First time I met him was when he was just taking voluntary retirement from the administrative services, and I was in the services of the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Today, things have reversed. I've just retired from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and I can see Mr. Butch being very active in the social service. Thank you to see you, so very active. I must thank Professor Singh and particularly Dr. Vinayak Chaudhary also for arranging the logistics in this cold climate when the flights got cancelled. I don't know how really I managed to reach here, but it is homecoming for me. I owe my entire education to a small town in the state of Madhya Pradesh. I'm really very happy to be with you. I thought I'll raise this question that Mr. Butch has raised very, very pertinently, very, very emphatically, in a different context. See, given this cold weather, I was told that Delhi was colder than Shimla and London just before 3 days. I thought I'll give you a warm vision. A vision from a model. You must be receiving greetings for a bright, happy future. Let me give you a very bright future for India and for Asia, coming from a general equilibrium model that many economists are, fascinated by it. Let me give you the basic crux. Before that, let me mention that before even a decade, whenever we talked about smartness, we associated with computers, with a telephone, with a card, with a mobile phone. And when we called a young boy or a girl smart, I don't think we made the best possible compliment. Because smartness somehow we thought relates with the exterior. And there are better ways of complimenting a person, because smartness has some negativity. Before 4 or 5 years, when I heard the word smart cities being used, I tried to understand what it is. I entirely agree with Mr. Butch that not only the roadmap to smart cities have been very clearly defined, even the concept itself needs to be concretized. Initially, it was thought that smart cities are those which are governed very efficiently, effective service delivery, participatory management, networking through computers. But just open the website of the Ministry of Urban Development or Housing or Urban Poverty Alleviation. You find anything and everything good is associated with smart cities. Smart cities are globally connected, it generates employment, it gets highest level of services. Now, if smart cities are that, it's everything that is good, then there is no debate. We all will accept smart cities. But then, smart cities do not become a tool for intervention in planning. If you want smart cities to be used as a tool of intervention for planning, you ought to define the demographic, technological, structural, institutional parameters, which unfortunately has not been done. And today I don't want to act as an advisor to the government and tell what is to be done. But let me do what I promised, the warm vision of future India, future Asia. Can we go to the first slide? This is a slide which shows that Asia at the moment accounts for 27% of the global output. But by 2050, it would account for 50% of the global output. Indian share is also going up much faster than this proportion. Look at the growth rate of Asian economy and Indian economy. It's much higher than the global economic growth rate. Not just because Eurozone crisis is affecting Europe. Asian growth rate and Indian growth rate is going to be much larger than the world growth rate up to 2050. The per capita income of Asia, per capita income of India is much below the global average now. But by 2050, is going to be at least 20% higher. That is the future. 21st century belongs to Asia, it belongs to India. This is not a statement which has been made by a minister in the new government or the dictator of any of these South Asian or Asian countries. It's a statement, it's a title of a report which has been brought out by Asian Development Bank. 21st century belongs to Asia, it belongs to India. Look at this graph. Look at this graph. The green patch shows the share of Asia in the global middle class consumption, which is not more than 21% in 2000. This is going to be something like 68% is the share of Asia in the global middle class consumption. This has been predicted and supported by the World Bank. Look at the next graph, which gives the share of India. The bottom shows the share of China going up, the grayish color. Do you know what is the next one above it? Which accounts for 33% of the global middle class consumption. At the moment it's almost zero, or maybe 2-3%. This will go up to 33% by 2050. That is the projection made by the Brookings Institute. These are based on the structural assessment of Asia and India. You know, India has a demographic dividend. The percentage of young people between 15 and 35 is going to increase. It will be larger than China. And that is the age group which is most productive, doesn't have health problems. And if that, why is it that India would have that percentage going up? Because our population growth rate was very high before 10-15 years. Those who are born then are entering the labor force. That gives India as a great structural advantage. Now, is this dream going to be true? It depends on two very crucial assumptions, because I'm not giving you the general equilibrium model, it's not really relevant, but though two very critical assumptions. I was in Bangkok just last week, we were discussing these two assumptions in great detail. The first assumption, Indian urbanization will take place at a very, very rapid pace. You would say, oh, this is true. You look at the media reporting, look at the statements made by the ministers. Of course, Indian urbanization is very rapid. But is this statistically true? Is this really happening? That is one question that we have to answer. Second assumption is that the cities would have high level of labor productivity, and this will be maintained for the next 4 decades. That's the second crucial assumption. All that I would do in the next few minutes available to me is to critically examine these two assumptions and see whether actually we can reach that goal, which has been predicted by Asian Development Bank. World Bank says, yes, this is the future which is coming up. Can we really stand up to this expectation and meet these assumptions? And if those assumptions are met by the cities, we will say, okay, this is the definition of the smart cities, because that's taking us to the dream vision. First point is that if you look at the data rigorously, you find growth rate of urban population is declining significantly. Go to the next slide, please. This shows, the red graph shows South Asia, which is really dominated by India, and the growth rate within Asian region is very low as far as South Asia is concerned. Please go to the next one. This is showing rural-urban inequality. The red one shows the urban per capita income. We don't have income data for all the years, it's up to 2004-05, but it does show rural-urban inequality is going up significantly. Next one, this is showing per capita consumption expenditure. This can be updated to 2013, and we find again that the rural-urban inequality is going up. What should we expect? If rural-urban income inequalities are going up alarmingly, and in social dimension, health dimension, again inequalities are going up significantly, we would expect rapid migration. What's happening? Next one. You look at this curve, the bars are showing percentage of urban population, which of course is increasing, but if you look at the line which is going up and then coming down, shows growth rate of urban population has gone down significantly. During 70s, urban population grew by 3.8%. In the 80s, it went down to 3.1%. In the 90s, it went down further to 2.7%. In 2001 and 11, urban growth rate is 2.7%. That also has been maintained because of census activism. They have identified 2,700 new towns. Otherwise, urban growth rate would have been 2.5%. Obviously, we find that the growth rate of urban population has decelerated. The large cities particularly have sanitized their urban space. The point that Mr. Butch was mentioning, for the powerful emerging middle class and the upper class population. And we do find this sanitization of the larger urban centers is resulting in contributing significantly to the decline in the urban population. Please go to the next curve. You know, the blue bars are all for the year 2025-30. These are the projected growth rates by United Nations Population Division. These are all blue bars are projection for 2025-30 made at different points of time. The projected growth rate before 20 years by UN was much higher compared to the projection which has been made now, which recognizes the fact that there is some kind of an urban elite and middle class capture in the particularly larger urban centers, and that's why you find that they're revising the growth rates downwards. The red bars are showing the growth rate projected at different points of time by the UN. It again shows the decline. Go to the next curve quickly. This is again the projected growth rates for the urban population. We can go to the next one. You see, Indian urban structure is characterized by top heaviness. A large percentage of total population, urban population, is in 5 million plus cities. What is the percentage of urban population living in 5 million plus cities? Could you go to the next slide quickly? 7.5% in Europe. Next one, 9%. Less developed countries, 15%. World average is 15.5%. Developed countries, 16%. Asia's 18%. South Central Asia, 23%. Stop. India, 23.5%. It's one of the most top-heavy urban structure in the whole world. And what we find that the larger cities, take the 25 largest cities, excepting Bengaluru and Puducherry, you find there's a decline in the growth rate of urban population. Delhi's growth rate has become half. Mumbai has lost population in the central areas because, as I said, that the larger cities are sanitizing their urban space to attract the global capital. So the first assumption is urban growth rate will be very rapid. The cities will be able to take the younger population, 15 to 50, 35 were very active. They will come to the urban areas. That itself is being questioned by the present model of urbanization. How do you promote that is a different issue. Let's go to the second assumption. Would the productivity of labor in the urban sectors be maintained? Can it be increased significantly as projected in the World Bank models? You just look at this. This shows the decline in the slum population, and the maximum decline in the slum population is in case of South Asia, in case of India. The target in Millennium Development Goals was that the slum population will go down. Actually, this has happened in the Indian condition. Percentage of slums have gone down marginally from 2001 to 2011 as per the population census data, which is certainly a matter of anxiety. I just wanted to quickly go over the productivity issue. How can we increase the labor productivity in the urban centers, which is a crucial assumption for realizing the dream? Labor market reform, land market reform, and most importantly, capital market reform. Is it coming up? In fact, there are already some capital market reforms which have come up. First point, capital market reform and the new system of governance says that the allocation by the state government to the urban local bodies would not be made on the basis of deficiency in your infrastructure, would not be made on the basis of your incapability to mobilize resources. It will be made on the basis of your efficiency. If you can get highly productive projects, efficient projects, which is profitable, which can pay the market rate of interest, that is the model of allocation of funds, which is implicitly coming up in many of the state governments. The larger cities which have capital assets can go to the market, capital market, you issue bonds, debentures, structured debt obligations, and mobilize resources from the institutional sources. But when you come to the small and medium towns, they don't have the economic base to be able to mobilize capital market resources. You find that the urban investment and in urban infrastructure is becoming extremely unequal, and the small and medium towns are not receiving their due share. In order to approach the capital market, you have to escrow or mortgage your capital assets. Even the sources of earning, the amount that mobilized through taxation has to be mortgaged. Now only the larger cities can do that, and the moment a local body mortgages its own sources of earning, it in a way loses the right to spend the money in their own way, it cannot then spend the money on slum improvement, provision of drinking water and sanitation facilities in the low-income areas. These are the problems which have come up. We have been able to improve the capital productivity, labor productivity in few of these cities, but these cities have become exclusionary. Can we make the labor productivity go up, but at the same time ensure that they don't become exclusionary? That is the challenge of the capital market. Unfortunately, we find that most of the cities, including the JNNURM cities, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission cities that Mr. Butch referred to, you calculate the growth rate of population. There's been a dramatic decline. You have made substantial infrastructural investment in these cities, but their capability to absorb informal sector labor force has declined. Let me go quickly to the next graph. Can we go to the next slide? Let's go to the labor market. The trends in the labor market because of the reforms is even more alarming. You must be hearing that there's a massive informal sector explosion in the urban areas. But examine the kind of enterprises that have come up. In the 60s and the 70s, many units could come up without taking any permission from any source. But now, you cannot find a single unit which doesn't have some kind of a permission from either the Urban Resident Welfare Association or from the municipal corporation, sales department, planning department, electrical department. At least some amount of formalization is taking place. And that formalization is taking place because many of the informal units are supplying intermediate product to the formal units. Now this formalization of the informal sector does not benefit the workers. The workers are not getting the advantages, the entrepreneurs who are taking the advantage, workers get the similar amount of money.